So now we have this desire to depopulate. And in one of the documentaries I had shared with you guys that one of these, and these are former judges, former judges in the United States Circuit, former congressmen, journalists, etc. And so one of them said that they, and this was back in 2015, their plans is to have things in place by 2020. There are a lot of things that happened in 2020, and we're only in the month of May. Nothing more big than the coronavirus, right? At least on the news. I'm not as far as it, but as far as it on the news. And so when you think about what they're talking about, depopulation, and they're talking about all these things, who are the most, according to what they said, who is the most vulnerable? The most vulnerable were anybody but children, for the most part. And the children are needed as far as those who they actually allowed to be born, because children are malleable, children are moldable. Children, you're able to teach them whatever doctrine, and they won't fight against the new normal that they're trying to roll out. And so, and who had the most to say about the about C-19? Many people talk about President Donald Trump, but he did actually exactly what he was supposed to do. He did exactly what you or I would do if we were president, which would be rely on the experts, because he's not a doctor, he's not a researcher, he's not a scientist, right? So what do? You get the experts. However, I believe he began to see the true motives behind some of the experts and began doing things a little bit differently. In terms of experts, there's none who's been on the forefront more than, should I say, Dr. Fauci. However, upon further investigation, we learned about Dr. Fauci that he transferred $3.7 million to the Wuhan lab by National Institute of Health during the Obama administration back in 2015. This was Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci also at the University of Georgetown said that there will be a surprise outbreak of disease, of a pandemic disease during the Trump administration. He said this back in 2017, and it's very interesting how he was able to point out that it would be during Trump's administration. He's also on the Leadership Council, and here's where it starts getting a little bit interesting as far as I'm concerned. He's also on the Leadership Council of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, this is a man who has connections with the World Health Organization, who has connections with the national NIH, I forget what they stand for, but NIH, which is also a governmental entity with dealing with disease and World Health, etc. And so, but he also has a connection with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and you can look that up for yourself. Now, before I even proceed, there was an article that was put that talked about Dr. Fauci, because if you can recall, there was not too long ago where there was some conflict, or seemed to be conflict with President Trump and Fauci. And in the beginning, not so much, but I think as things began to unfold, even so with the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization was at the forefront until Trump learned some information, and that was no longer the case. But look at Fauci, though. So here's one particular website, a radio station, and they talk about 15 totally wrong predictions and contradictions. Now, here's the thing, because he is the top infectious disease doctor. as far as what's on paper. But look at some of the things now. It's not a matter of him being in error. It's a matter of when you look at all the connections and then how he has been acting, it should cause you to be alarmed. It should cause you to be very alarmed. Okay, one of the things, and I'm going to speed through this because we have so much to unpack, and I hope that I'm not losing anybody. I'm not trying to. So Dr. Fauci says that he warned Trump in January that the U.S. was in real trouble, but that is not what he said publicly, right? He said he warned Trump in January. Let me get my glasses so I can see this. Okay, so he says, I warned Trump in January that the U.S. was in real trouble, but that's not what he said publicly, according to this paper. Number two, Dr. Fauci warned that apocalyptic coronavirus pandemic. Then just weeks later, he compared the coronavirus to a bad flu. So there's contradiction there. Number three, Dr. Fauci based all of his predictions on models that were off by millions, and then later told reporters you can't rely on models. Number four, March 20th of this year, Dr. Fauci jumped in and during a press briefing on that word right there, treatment for coronavirus, corrected the president, saying, you got to be careful when you say fairly effective. It was never done in clinical trial. It was given to individuals and felt that maybe it worked. Exactly 2 weeks later, this medication was deemed the most highly rated treatment for novel coronavirus in an international poll of more than 6,000 doctors. Now remember, this is the same man, the same doctor, the same professional. This is what he does by trade. He's been studying this. This is the same person by trade that we learned that during the Obama era administration that he had, and under his watch, this was under his watch, that $3.7 million was transferred to the Wuhan lab. Number five, Dr. Fauci pushed these garbage models, okay, well, that's what they said, garbage models every step of the way. No, that's opinion. Okay, number six, on Easter, Dr. Fauci suggested President Trump should have shut down the economy in February, where the number of known cases in the United States was around 100. Fauci later walked back his attacks. Number seven, Fauci said cruises were okay in March 9th. That was a huge error. We heard about the cruises. Number eight, Dr. Fauci said malls, movies, and gyms were okay on February 29th. That was another big mistake. Now, this is a man who said back in 2017 that there was going to be a huge outbreak, a huge pandemic that would occur under the Trump. He specifically said Trump administration. How did he know that? And if he did know that, why was he so off in his information that he's given now to President Trump, someone who you can tell he doesn't really like, someone who was also connected to Bill Gates. On April 15th, number 11, April 15th, 2020, Fauci endorsed the Tinder hookups. Unbelievably. 12, Dr. Fauci relied on corrupt WHO rules to lock down the United States and destroy the U.S. economy. Meanwhile, this delays of the herd immunity that is needed to prevent future outbreak. Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx used the Imperial College model to persuade President Trump to lock down the entire economy. The Imperial model has since been confirmed a complete fraud. Dr. Fauci warned that Georgia would see a surge of coronavirus cases and deaths by opening the economy early. He again was wrong. And on Tuesday, during Dr. Fauci's testimony, he told Dr. Rand Paul that opening the schools will not be a good idea. And so by based upon what do you do in a situation that you didn't know that you had to prepare for, the first thing you would do is look to a specialist, an expert. That's what we do, right? When we're sick and we don't know what it is, the first thing you do is go to what you deem as a specialist or an expert. You go to a doctor who, interestingly enough, that we don't really pay attention to, they practice medicine, not health. They practice medicine. That's another topic that we'll talk at a different time.